Chuggington copied Thomas again. After at least 18 years, the lost pilot pitch for Chuggington has been discovered. Thanks to YouTube user Tangentially Thomas, we have the full original sample of yet another train show from my childhood. Now, I didn't think I'd make a video like this, as I usually don't make videos on sentient trains. I talk about obsolete tech, but this just piqued my interest, and Chuggington was a show I watched to death as a kid, along with Thomas. Even my old Chuggington toys are still alive and kicking to this very day. So I figured, why not do an analysis on this pilot, showing key differences compared to the first series of the show, briefly going over the history of this pilot. Sounds like fun. Also, before I start, I will obviously link the pilot in the description for all of you to check out if you so choose. And also, I obviously don't own anything in this video, all owners will be credited in the description. So, let's start with a brief history. In 2006, British studio Ludorum, who were the people behind Chuggington in the first place, produced a short animation test to pitch the show to investors. Animation was done by the Chinese animation company Shanghai Motion Magic Digital, who also did the animation for the whole series. The pilot was screened at the MIPCOM trade show for television, and was obviously a success, as a whole first series was greenlit. The pilot was made on a small budget, so only 3 characters appear: Wilson, V, and Dunbar. However, the other main characters such as Brewster and Coco were intended to appear alongside Wilson and the others, but since this pilot was made to just show the mere tone and idea of the show, only these 3 were included, as an example. After the show proved to be a success with BBC investors, the show officially entered production, and later premiered on the CBeebies block on BBC Two on September 29th, 2008, a whole 2 years after the initial pilot. So, the pilot itself starts with a very different logo from the one seen in the final show that we are all familiar with. The letters are made to look like metal parts with bolts and train whistles. However, this logo has actually somewhat been seen before, as we already had the concept art for it. The music used here sounds a little different to the final show. The final show's music sounds like it's comprised more of metal clanking sounds. And while the pilot's music does sort of use that same type of sound, it sounds, well, more bouncy. I'm not an expert on music, okay? The town looks eerily more empty than it usually does. The thing that bears the most resemblance to the final are the tunnels, and even so, they are missing a lot of details, such as the lights. The tunnel colours are actually in a different order. In the final series, the colours go red, blue, yellow, and green in that order. In the pilot, however, it goes blue, red, green, and yellow. V is depicted with a very different design, being more square and angular compared to her final design. The megaphones on the final design are meant to sort of resemble hands or arms, whereas on the old design they just look like normal megaphones. The most striking difference about V is that she is depicted without a head. Wilson is actually shown to have more of an American accent compared to the final series.
I'm here, V, ready to ride the rail.
Dunbar has more of a gruff American accent in the pilot.
Right now, Wilson. You're collecting some heavy marble, so you'll need this hopper car.
The hopper car is shown to have a different design. In the pilot it looks like this, but in the final it looks like this, and definitely bears more resemblance to British hopper cars. These screens are shown to fold out to the left. In the final, they simply slot out.
Marble Mountain, here I come!
As mentioned by Wilson, Marble Mountain is actually just the mountain quarry, as referred in the final series. In the third series, it was referred to as the Rocky Ridge Quarry, and then simply being called the Quarry in later series. Wilson lacks the yellow trainee badge that he had on his rear in the first few series of the final show, as well as the blue outline around his rear door. The camera movement in the pilot is shown to be quite stiff, as it usually just starts moving and then comes to a dead stop. In the final, it obviously pans and moves much smoother. The term buckle up would become sort of a catchphrase in the show, used in a lot of episodes. If you look very closely here, Wilson's horn clips slightly into his roof. Actually, let's quickly go over the goofs in this pilot, because there are quite a few. Dunbar's model actually stops moving completely as the camera pans over to Wilson, although it's only barely on screen for a few seconds. Now, I don't know if it's just me, but Wilson's wheels do not look like they're on the rails. They look like they're above the rails. Well, Wilson did fly in the show, so I guess it kind of works, you know, just do. And speaking of rails, they look a lot more like actual rails, especially with the ballast next to them. However, I gotta say, I am more fond of the chunky blue tracks. They're just burned into my mind at this point. The Ludorum logo at the end is completely different than the one used in the final show. Here's what the newer logo looked like. And finally, the music that plays at the end has vocals used. And it kind of makes me wonder, maybe this might have been an early theme song for the show? Who knows? And there you go. Even though none of you even asked for it, that was my analysis on the 2006 Chuggington pilot pitch. I will admit, I've never actually made an analysis video before, so I was probably bound to not point out a few things. Of course, if anyone watching notices something that I didn't, then by all means, let me know in that desolate comment section. And let's all remember one thing: Chuggington copied Thomas again.